So, yep, good.
Why does it take
Hit hard, big guy hit hard.
12 years
Good.
to learn math?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So we're going to call to order the Education Committee meeting for October 27th. We have a pretty impactful agenda for the Education Committee meeting, going from 6 to 6:45 today, and then we're going to heading into an executive session at 6:45 for the school board, and then come back at 7 for the board meeting. So I'll just start off with the call to order. I know we have myself as the chair, Glenn Iosu. We also have John Kern to my right, and then we have Brian Reimers to my left. I also have in attendance today Dr. Lisa Hoffman for the assistant superintendent as part of the administration role for the education committee, and then Dr. Michael Zakin is in the audience. And anyone else? That's good. Okay. So I'll let you go. I think there's meeting minutes. I'm not sure if they were posted. Is that the October 18th meeting minutes? I mean, I reviewed them. I think they're in order. I'm not sure if there's any comments on them. Yes. Good. Motion to approve? Good. All right. We're good. Minutes approved, and we can move on to the agenda.
Well, we didn't vote on that.
Oh, would you like to vote?
Can't just say it's approved and
Okay.
then move on.
Go ahead. All right. Motion to vote on the meeting minutes? So moved.
All those in favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Good.
Aye.
Thank you. So we'll move ahead with the program of studies, which is a pretty long document here. So I guess we'll pass the mic over to Dr. Hoffman. Good.
Great. So the program of studies is listed here as a draft document. It does include the new plan course statements, which are on the agenda also for you to review. None of these items are we asking for a vote tonight at the meeting. We will be bringing this back for a vote at the November meeting. So if you do have any questions after looking through any of these, we would ask that you either let someone in my office know about the changes that you're requesting prior to that meeting so that we can have a clean draft for you, or at the November meeting when you do the vote, you could ask us to vote but take out X, Y, or Z. So whatever you're more comfortable with. If I could start with the plan course statements, that's listed as item 2A for discussion. There's two that I'd like to address kind of separately from the others, and those are AP Pre-Calculus and Women Making History. So those were topics that were brought up before at a meeting. I think now it's probably got confused because we had an extra meeting in there. So it would have been 2 meetings ago. The AP Pre-Calculus is a new College Board course. It would take the place of our Honors Pre-Calculus class. So we would now be using the AP curriculum for Pre-Calculus, getting our students ready for AP Calculus, and we would not be offering an honors level. This is similar to the decision that we made a few years ago when AP put out a Physics 1 and Physics 2, and they said, you know, school districts should no longer teach an honors physics. Instead, they should teach 1 and then 2. So we made that change. This is kind of a similar to change to that. The Women Making History class was a teacher-requested course. The teacher requested that we present this. She wrote the plan course statement and put it forward. So it is not part of a typical curriculum cycle where we're introducing new courses, but always whenever we have a staff member who's interested in a new course that they'd like to teach, we put it out there, and it does not mean that it will run. If students don't select the course, then we don't run it. And we have had classes for several years that we have in the program of studies, and if we don't get enough interest, then maybe we, in a few years, we would look at not offering it anymore. But the course here, we don't have a text or anything for the course yet because it's not an approved class, but you can read there what she put into the plan course statement. Any questions about either of those two courses right now?
So just for clarification, so AP, I think there was a question in the prior meeting on AP Pre-Calculus that checking to make sure it's something that colleges are looking for, like it's an approved advanced placement. That, so when I went to college, it was calculus. Now it's pre-calculus is what they're looking for instead of calculus.
So I don't know that, well, first of all, I don't know that we know that because it's a brand new class. So no one's offering it yet. So we wouldn't yet know whether or not colleges were interested in it. We have a similar situation with offering AP literature and AP language because many colleges will only take 3 credits. So even if you took 2 and passed 2, they're only giving you 1 credit. Here, I would imagine that there are colleges who will take an AP pre-calculus score and count it towards math. But I'm certain that if you were going to be a math major, you would also be taking AP calculus, and then you would be looking to transfer that score. So we have many students who take AP classes for the rigor and not only for the credit replacement. Certainly, many colleges also offer advancement. So while they don't count this as a class, they might say, okay, instead of being in Calc 101, now you get to be in Calc 102. So sometimes there's an advancement issue, not just a replacement issue. So I think I don't know if Mr. V has anything to add to that. I don't know that we know much more because it's a brand new course.
Okay.
I had a question with AP classes, with the increased students we have taking AP classes. I mean, you can trend it back to when we started offering some. Have we seen our college readiness number go up with more students taking these AP classes?
So are you referring to like a state college readiness number?
The one just on the top of your graduation requirement sheet here, right here.
Well, yeah, this is
Not
a
my
document
sheet,
I
but-
prepared.
It was shared in an email today with us.
Yeah, this is a document I had prepared.
Okay.
There was a question posed about what are the graduation requirements, I think in a prior education committee meeting for, other school districts in our region. And I think there was a reference that they're all publicly available. So I just went online and did a quick search and found what I could publicly for Central Bucks.
That looks like the
and-
U.S. News numbers right there.
Yeah, on the top, yeah. So this is something I prepared just as a comparative because there was, requests by a board member and others of interest to reduce the graduation requirements. And it's always nice to see what is other school districts doing. So this gives us a quick snapshot of what other school districts are doing as well as how they're ranked from U.S. News. So that was information purposes, yep. Good.
Sorry, I
We-
thought that
that's
came
okay.
from Dr. Hoffman.
That's okay. We have, in general, we have seen an increase in our reported scores, but it's not all based just on AP. So it's not just based just on who takes the classes, how many students take the classes, how many pass. It's based on, other information as well. And then we also have our state reported numbers, which have been messy, to say the least, over the last few years. So they had a pause in reporting, then they gave us a report, but it was 2 years in arrears, so that was difficult. So I'm not sure that, again, sometimes the trend data becomes difficult when the marker keeps moving.
Yeah.
Because now we're comparing how we did on something, a different test, so to speak.
Now, AP is offered by college boards, right? They write the
Correct.
curriculum and everything else, and we have to pay them, like, for this service, right? We have to buy the curriculum?
No, we send our teachers to training.
Okay.
So there's a cost to that. And then we would purchase the recommended textbooks, but that's no different than anything else. We don't pay them a fee to be able to teach the course.
So is, when they say they recommend you teach AP instead of honors, is that because they want to sell you the textbooks? Or I'm not necessarily talking bad about AP. I just want to know how the whole system works.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think the decision to not offer honors really just comes from the basics of where the pool of kids that you're pulling from. So if a student is advanced in mathematics and they're on a track where they're going to take a high advanced pre-calculus class, then the content of the AP pre-calculus seems fairly similar to what we're currently offering in honors. And if we offered them both, it really kind of dilutes how you can run the classes. And so it's kind of a numbers game at that point. If the content was significantly different and was, I would say we could still offer the honors for the students who want that path, and then we would offer AP for a different, but just in a quick looking at the units and what's covered, it's too similar to offer both.
Right, but also you have to remember the whole point of the AP class, whereas it's not just to educate these children, it's also to attempt to give them some college credit. Because there are those kids who take all the AP, and by the time they graduate, they've got 1 full year of college under their belt.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad thing to do AP.
Sometimes.
I just kind of want the background and the information and,
Yeah, the College Board is not telling us that we can't offer an honors level class.
Okay.
They're not, they're just saying that this content would pull from the kids who you may have previously had in an honors level class. And for a district our size, the number of students who are in this class, it doesn't make sense to offer both.
So, Dr. Hoffman, how many AP courses do we have now? Can you give me a rough number?
I bet that Mr. V could give you the exact number. I want to say we're
Not
close
to
to
put you on the
20.
spot. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was going to, yeah, mid-20s-ish.
20, mid-20. Is there ever, and I don't know the answer to this, and I'm curious about this, is there ever the possibility that we're so hyper-focused on AP courses that we're adding too many and we're pushing kids beyond where their comforts are and where their abilities are?
So I kind of think of that as two separate questions. The first is, do we have too many AP classes? And I would say no, because kids are taking them. So whatever we offer, if kids are picking it, we take it. In the past, we have had some AP classes. I can think of a few: AP Music Theory, AP Studio Art, where we didn't have enough students to be able to take it. So either we said we're going to offer it every other year to try to grab like 2 years of kids to sign up and take it, or we haven't run it. Mm-hmm. And so that happens sometimes. So even though that's in our catalog, maybe those classes aren't running. In terms of pushing students into AP,
Not
we don't
necessarily
have,
pushing students
Okay.
in, but, as a student, I'm looking at that and saying, well, I may not be great at math, calculus. I'm okay, but maybe I'll try that. So instead of taking the calculus at the level where I'm going to be successful, now I'm pushing myself above and beyond my ability level to try this AP course. Is that ever a concern?
I think that's a conversation you'd have to have with your counselor. We would still offer pre-calculus. So there's a pre-calculus class that's a standard on-level class. And I think sometimes the fact that in this district we have called our courses college prep makes it seem as though it's not a standard on-level class. And that's really what we have. We have standard on-level classes, and then we have AP classes or honors classes, Project Lead the Way classes. And so if you are interested and at the level to have a pre-calculus class, you still have that opportunity. If you feel like you are ready to step up, or you're maybe interested in a STEM type field, now you would also have the opportunity to take an AP pre-calculus class. So that option still exists for students who maybe want to. And we do have students, as much as we try to say once you're in a class, we need you to stay there. If a student was really struggling in a class, we would, work to get them into a more appropriate level, even if it was into the school year.
Just a quick question on the cooperative education. When I saw that, I thought maybe we're starting like a co-op program, but that's actually just a course, right?
So if there aren't any other questions about those other two classes, I'll kind of talk about the next block of classes,
Oh,
which
yeah.
are the.
I was just going
oh.
to ask, it's certainly nice to see a teacher volunteering an idea. My question about the women making history is there something missing in our current history? Or, are there things that, instead of being so hyper-focused on a thin slice, is there something that this could help influence our history? Yeah, so that'd be my question, is like, what gap is this trying to fill? Because I'd be a little concerned about, is this watering something down, or, is there something that we're not doing in our normal history that this is needed? Anyway,
I was not in the meeting. I don't know if Dr. Zachin has something to share, but I think it was really just a desire to have this is an elective-based semester course. It's not a full-year social studies class. An elective-based semester course that specifically targeted women's history. So I don't know that I have more. I can take that back and get more information for you if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because it's something that covers elements that I would hope that in our normal history class that we're not, it's not the history of men or something like that. So that's all, like it's an opportunity to instead make sure that some of our regular history does cover elements of are all people, not just some people. That's all.
Understood.
So you answered my question, but I think I can go a little further with it too, meaning that this is an elective class, so this would expand on our current history and social studies classes.
Correct.
For people that would have that direct interest in it. So,
Right. Maybe like dive deeper into that topic. I think
Yeah.
that was her intent.
so much like the AP music theory class, when that was, for band and choir kids that want to go a little further with stuff, they can pick that. So,
The other courses on here are courses that we had introduced at the last board meeting as potential programs that we could have in-house. We are calling them focused electives. So they would be 2-credit courses that students could take. They could repeat them for credit each year if they wanted to, with different curriculum, of course. And what we are presenting tonight are plan course statements in these areas to be included in our program of studies as just regular courses. So when we first did this presentation, there was conversation about seeking CTE approval, and at least a few board members expressed concern about competition with the tech school. I did meet, Dr. Zakin and I went to the tech school. We were met by several teachers who had seen the presentation and had some questions for us, I would say. It's a nice way to say that. And I thought we had a really positive conversation and came up with some good ideas, but they would take a little bit more time. And so what we kind of talked about was the idea of the school district offering more of an entry-level topic overview, classroom-based experience for students who may be excited by just that, and that's all they want to do, and then they're done. Or they may take that entry-level based idea and then want to move into the tech school for subsequent years. So as an example, and this example was actually brought up to us by a teacher at the tech school, not by me. If our students were able to work with Mr. Polk, for example, and learn knife skills, the mother sauces. Do you remember what the other topics were? I don't know. Some other things that they might learn, okay, in their first year. And then if they had that passion, they could then go on to the tech school to continue their career there. It is not a 4-year program, so they would certainly be able to do that. And the teacher felt like it would really be an advantage if students came to him with those skills already in play. Similarly, when we met with the horticulture teacher, the agriculture teacher, he said that currently they are not teaching the first level of the CASE curriculum at the tech school, and he felt that if we offered that to our students here, and then they could go into the tech school already with that under their belt, that would be a benefit. And I'll speak for Dr. Zakin if he doesn't mind, but we both kind of were like, that could be a nice win-win. Like I didn't know that. You're indicating to us that you would be more comfortable if students kind of came in with those skills. And then we're not recreating programs, but we are offering some opportunities to our kids here. They would still also be available to students here who just want to take an elective they're interested in, and then the next year they want to take something different. Like, you don't have to do this for 4 years. And I think I personally think it's a nice blend. We're not, if one of these really takes off and we decide that, hey, we do really want to expand this and we want to look back into that CTE route as we go, nothing's telling us we can't do that. But right now we have these written just as a typical elective that we would offer, and we'll see if students select them. Again, if they don't, then we won't be running them. The co-op is a little bit different. So right now we have a class called Independent Study. We have we have used a class called Independent Study, and we have Field Study. Do we have another one still? Just Field Study? Okay. They've had different names over the years. And the idea is that a student can take a course for credit where they maybe are going and helping out at the elementary school because they want to be a teacher, or they are, doing an internship at the hospital because they might want to work in that field. And they are responsible for checking in, doing reflection papers, other things that would grant them credit, but most of the time it's that they're out. The co-op class would give us the opportunity to actually work on some job-seeking skills with students. So if you take this class, you're working on resume building, interviewing, getting a job. The teacher or whoever's in charge of this program would go out and meet the employers. Students would have to submit their pay stubs and reflections and have signatures, and then we would grant credit for that based on what they're doing. So that's similar to what some of the students at the tech school do, only you wouldn't be required to do it in a field, and we would be able to grant credit that way. Another piece, and I don't know if I put you on the spot here, Mrs. Pallone, but we are working with some of our students at the academy and Levy Bus. And do you want to talk about it, or you want me to talk about it?
Sure. So we're really excited about this. As you know, we have a shortage of bus drivers. And during one of our monthly meetings, thank you, with Levy, Brooke and I were talking about attraction and retention of drivers. And Len had mentioned he was going to go to the tech school and talk about that. And I said, well, hey, we might be able to have some kiddos over here who have 2.5 hours of programming. Certainly they have work to do at home, but we might be able to work something out. So right now we have one student who is very excited to work on his CDL. That will be starting in January. So Craig from Levy Bus came over, met with the student. You have to be 18 years old to start working on getting your license. It will be a Class B CDL license. And so Levy's excited, we're excited, and the student is very excited to be working on that part of his career. He's a senior, obviously, at 18.
So a positive in this type of an environment is, yes, of course, we're excited to hopefully have another future bus driver in the ranks, right? We're also excited that we're helping a student with a potential career path, but it would also be great if we could have him submit his work, have Levy sign off, yes, he did this, yes, he's learning these skills, and we would be able to transfer that to elective credit. So that's kind of where that comes in.
So did you hear about the, and this was recently too, I was probably going to say it in my tech school update, Bucks County Community College is doing a CDL program, and they are looking to use the tech school's parking lot as the area where they'd be teaching it. So that just happened too at the same time. So
Yeah, so
now I
that's
think
it.
Levy goes with a different school when they do their training, but
So the Bucks County Community College program has actually been in existence for some time, and I think the new partnership is just using the parking lot at the tech school. That's a community-based program. We were trying to look for a student-based program where we could pull. We've done that before with the community college. We had a metalworking program, and I can't remember what the other one was, but we had two programs where once our students turned 18, they could go to the community college and do like an adult program to get training. So this would be similar to that.
Dr. Hoffman, this
Yes.
was originally presented as an opportunity for micro-credentialing. You seem to have scaled back this idea just a little bit.
Just on the CTE aspect, so these programs can all still have the same credentials. The students can still get in the I guess the culinary or whatever it would be called. They could still take the OSHA trainings that they need in the ServSafe. We talked about the digital communications and media still having the Adobe certification, so they all would still have the same certifications. They just wouldn't be in the CTE bucket from the state. They'd be in, like, they still have to have a certification, and we still have to tag them. They're just not considered CTE
So it'd still be on
programs.
the PDE side.
Right,
instead of
and then
the
they
CTE.
wouldn't take the NOCD, though in the programs that the tech school wanted to collaborate with us, the theory would be that the students would then go to the tech school in maybe 10th grade, and then they would
And
still
not
be
do
able
that.
to take it there. Most of the programs, as we understand it, though we still haven't received the document, are 2-year programs at the tech school. Some are 3, depending on the number, so we would not be disadvantaging any student in terms of not having enough time there, with the exception, as I understand it, of the state requirements for cosmetology, which are above and beyond what we need to do in school, but most students want to leave with their license, but we wouldn't be looking to do cosmetology here anyway, so.
Right.
Good.
So those are all currently in the draft of the program of studies. There is, Dr. Zakin, do you have the document where the changes were made somewhere? Maybe we can get that out to you, but Dr. Zakin made a document that just shows, so you don't have to read through the whole thing, which pages we made changes on, and I can make sure that you have a copy of that.
So my other question would be about staffing for this. You know, in the original draft, you said it may require more staffing. You know, will it also require like another administrator to run all of these?
Nope, so they're just
programs,
going
or-
to run as typical programs in our perma studies. So instead of choosing to take maybe the what's one of the classes called that?
I'm
Well,
looking
Chef's
at it.
One. Okay, so instead of choosing to take Chef's One, you would take this instead, and then Mr. V would need to work his magic to figure out where that could run. We don't believe that the impact to staffing is going to be as great as it would be if we weren't using our current teachers. So because these are all things that we have teachers who are certified in and they can already teach it, we know that in the elective areas, some places we've already been a little light, so we might see an increase in class sizes there. But we also aren't sure that all of these are going to run right away. So there's no guarantee that they're all going to fill and we're going to need to run them anyway. We also have movement every year between the middle school and the high school, especially in elective areas where we might have an excess of a language or we might have an excess of an art or, so forth. So we would bring that all back to you. At this point, I don't think that in our preliminary look, and Mr. V, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we really thought we were going to have a major impact to staffing.
Depends on which teachers we use for the program. So if we use
So-
I think that was my concern, was if you're pulling them to do one of these electives, you're pulling them from potentially a core subject, which then makes it necessary to fill that core subject in or make the classrooms bigger or make the class sizes bigger. So-
Assuming that those classes were already full.
Correct.
And assuming that the second choice that the students want is something that's already full. So,
Correct. That's why I
this
said
year,
potentially.
yes, this year we already pulled an English, a math, and a science teacher from the high school, potentially prematurely. I don't know how else to say that. But that was the recommendation. And so if anything, we might be looking to put some of those positions back in that have nothing to do with this. So I want to be clear that if we do come back and ask for staffing, it's not necessarily just because of these programs. It's because some of our class sizes are high and it's tight. And it's always going to be tight when we can only send ninth graders in the morning to tech and it loads them in the afternoon or so forth. So,
Well, that was my question for the next meeting, but thank you.
yeah. So, I mean, we're looking at that. We are spreadsheeting it up over here, looking at those numbers, and we see that they're high. So that would be separate from this, but.
But in that same vein, with half of our ninth graders this year going to tech and it looking like it's going to be close to the same next year, that's going to lower the amount of students overall in the high school moving forward. So that may open up spaces and staff. I see Mr.
isn't-
V shaking his head like,
It isn't necessarily helpful. It certainly isn't helpful to our low seniority teachers who see that as and elective teachers who see that as a direct hit at their jobs. And it certainly isn't helpful when we still need those people to teach in the afternoon or in the mornings. So like you can't take a half of a person and say, oh, we don't need you. I mean, you can, but for schedule purposes, it's messy that it's only ninth graders who go in the morning. And
but now it'll be the 10th graders that are also, but yeah, it's 9th and
Maybe.
10th graders that go in the morning.
Right.
And as
no,
they.
just ninth graders, just their first year.
Oh, okay.
they
So,
go.
but as that bubble moves through the high school, that'll kind of change it. And if it's not a bubble, there'll
Right.
just be less people going through the high school. But having these extra electives to move teachers into that may have those extra periods in the morning
Right.
might be
So
helpful.
we will, my recommendation is to put them in the program of studies and put it out there and see if there's interest and let the students speak in terms of what types of courses they want to see offered here.
Have you already heard back from students who said, I love this idea for this program, I can't wait to get into it?
So
tonight's the first
we don't present,
No, if
we
they-
wouldn't present to teachers or students prior to having board approval to run a program, because what I don't want to do, similar to when, I know there was some criticism about not sending eighth
But
graders.
you and I
to the
both
school
know
day.
that as a teacher, you're saying, oh, we might be running this program next year.
Yes.
I'm thinking about running this
Maybe
program.
they are,
and-
but I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Because I don't have board approval to say that yet. But no, I think we tried to pick topics where we know we historically have had a high number of students interested, where we have teachers who are interested, because I think that makes a difference too, especially when we're asking them to write a new curriculum. And so we'll put it out there.
So program of studies, I think we're on topic 2B. The graduation requirements is in that program of studies. Was there any changes to graduation
So
requirements?
we made no changes to what was in the graduation requirements from the last meeting. If the board wishes to vote and make a change to those requirements, we would then update it in the program of studies. But absent a vote, what's in there now is what we currently have.
Okay.
So if the board directs us to make a change, we would just update that in the document and then have that for November 11th, or November 10th, I think it is.
Okay.
Again, not in the committee, but I'm a fan for the half and half for health and phys ed. With the tech school the tech school students coming back to the high school, we may be in a position where we have to hire another health or phys ed teacher to accommodate those students coming back. By reducing the graduation requirements, that may work out to be a net zero.
I think
in
we will,
staffing.
I think we would still hire a health and phys ed teacher. But you're right, it could be two then instead of,
Instead of one, yeah.
Gotcha.
But beyond that, it also frees up students to take more electives in things like women's history and music theory and I clicked off my screen, but
Got it.
all the new electives that we're going to be offering.
So we'll have time to review this. We also have another education committee meeting prior to the next board meeting. We could discuss more, right? Good.
certainly.
Okay.
And then even if we don't, if the board chooses to wait until November 10th to vote, we would just ask that the program of studies be adopted with that change, like however it is that Mr. Garten tells you to say it so that it's legal, and then we would go back and reflect that in the document, rather than waiting until December or January for approval, since students need to start selecting these courses in December.
When's the next meeting?
Education meeting is the week before, so the Thursday, the board meeting, I think it's a Monday.
Are we
That's
having
the
these
week.
at noon or something like that?
To accommodate some of the administration schedules. We're having the non-board meeting education meetings.
And
And
what,
again-
what's done at those meetings at noon? Is it like an agenda set meeting?
Wouldn't
Or
you
is
like
it,
to
or is it?
Oh, it's-
I would like to know
Well,
that, too.
I would,
No, I-
because I would love to be at those meetings, but, and it's not just for me, I'm sure there's other public that work full-time that cannot make it. Now, I realize that we're live streaming.
Right.
But, so that's my question. I'd like to know what happens at that meeting.
Yeah, so we did the first one ever, and during that, it was information. We kept it 2 hours. A few board members were able to attend. It was live stream recorded, and it was information gathering. So some of the topics, as you can see, we can go on and on discussing them.
Sure.
We were trying to eliminate the discussions on a board meeting night that would extend it or get cut short, or we have not enough time to decide on matters. Particularly, we set these aside because there were a lot of items discussed that were relevant to education that would be structural changes that they needed to know, the administration, sooner than later. So the more discussions we can have, the better we're going to be. So I thought it went well. I understand it'd be nice to have everyone. It was sort of a trial run to see how it would go. I mean, if there's, I didn't hear any negative feedback besides, hey, it would have been great to have a better time. But otherwise, I thought it was productive.
Well, I'd like to put in some negative feedback because I think it was scheduled for the sole purpose that I couldn't be there. It was scheduled in the middle of the day. It was scheduled for a time when two of us were able to be there. You and I think John were able to be there. I don't know of any other people, right? So Chris and Ron. I'm on the committee, and we scheduled it for a time when I couldn't be there, and when we knew that no one else would be watching. You scheduled it because the administration asked you to schedule it then. You're the person setting the time for the meeting. You can go to the administration and say, we appreciate that, but no, we should have everybody on the committee able to be there, and we should be open to the public so that they can participate, not just live stream, because that's only part of it. So you want to talk about being transparent. That was not transparent, especially when you do things like bring up topics like closing QE again, which was on the agenda.
All right. Well, I don't think that's off topic right now, but.
It is on
Yeah.
topic. He asked
All
the
right.
question.
Well,
I'm
I
answering.
appreciate your comment.
I'm answering
I appreciate your comment.
You don't
Okay.
appreciate my comment because you're the one that brought up the damn
All right.
closing
If you want to
QE
argue,
thing.
go ahead.
Sure.
So moving on, go ahead.
So I know that we have talked about the idea behind the high school schedule, school start times, two-tier busing, when are school, all of those things kind of looped around. And at the board meeting, I think two board meetings ago, it sort of became, okay, why don't we talk about this at Education Committee? And so felt that it was important to kind of start with that idea of the high school schedule. So I got direction at the last meeting that, yes, we were looking for a high school schedule that met certain requirements. Those requirements had to do with making sure that we could feed all students in our school because they're coming back from tech, that we had the appropriate amount of time for students at tech school, and that we looked at a start time that was more amenable to multiple groups. So we worked hard on schedules, and Mr. V, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium. I don't have any walk-up music for you, but I've really got to get on that because I feel like when I call people up, there should be some kind of hype music for you. And yeah, I think excellent. Yes, we can do that. So Mr. V and his team and Dr. Zakin worked on a number of schedules. We had at first 4 options, and then it became like, well, what if we changed option 1 a little bit? So then we had like 1A, 1B, 1C, 2A, 2B, 2C, and so on. So it got a little cumbersome. But I have asked Mr. V here to kind of present the schedule that we have kind of all come around at this point. It doesn't mean it's the only possible schedule, but at this point, as meeting as many of those kind of different topics that came up as possible. So this is not for a vote, it's just for a share. This schedule does have the high school starting at 8 a.m., so we backed it up a little bit, kind of cut the difference between 2 years ago and this year. But it also does set the groundwork for us to look at potentially a 2-tier busing system for next year where we have all 6 through 12 students starting at 8. Preliminary look at that busing would be an increase of 2 buses. That's as of today. And I think that the important thing to also keep in mind with this is that we are collaborating with the other sending schools to the tech school. We'd be getting to the tech school at the same time as Penridge, and Palisades this morning was agreeable to pushing their time. I felt like they were agreeable to pushing their time a little bit so that their students got there at the same time, so that was good. We would be starting at 7:55, 8 o'clock, and Palisades would be starting at 7:40 or 7:45. And then Penridge needs a vote, so they're not saying anything yet because they need a vote, but they are looking at changing their start time to be in the 8:30 range for the following year.
The vote with the board is expected in February.
So we don't have that yet, but I think it's important, my opinion, it's important for us to try to maintain a time that is within that limit so that we don't change our time again. We changed it this year. We don't change it again next year. And then the following year, we have to change it back. So kind of trying to settle things down a little bit. We're hearing, different things about start times and sports, but having these conversations and knowing what's on the horizon for the districts that are around us and kind of steadying the ship and keeping it right there in the middle from 8 to 2:45, I think personally is our best option for the community to feel like we're listening. We hear the concerns, but we also don't want to have to tell them something different in a year.
I believe that sounds like a good compromise.
If we could add that to the minutes.
You could.
I'm going to mark that.
I
down.
believe other districts want to move in that direction because, the data has been out there that, and we have at least that first month's worth of data that showed tardiness went down, absenteeism went down. And Mr. V, have those trends continued as well?
I have not pulled the data recently.
Okay,
You'll get a monthly report.
okay. But I think 245, it's still not perfect for students with away games in Cheltenham and Lower Merion, but, it's getting better, so I think that's a good start. And has there been any considerations to moving AP classes away from the last 2 periods of the day then, where they would conflict with those away sports schedules?
So we
Or
can,
you
we
haven't
can
gotten
always
that
look at
deep
that.
in
We,
it?
we aren't
Yeah.
doing the schedule at this point, but we can always look at that. We typically let the system determine when the most students can get the courses that they requested and put that in. There's always difficulty because students play multiple sports or no sports, or, it's worse in the fall than it is in the spring. But I'm confident that if the other districts come along to the time change the way that their district committees are indicating they're moving towards, then that will mitigate the need for that to be a concern. I mean, even when we ended school at 2:15, kids had to leave early, and they leave early for events and other clubs and classes too. So I don't think we're ever going to really, get rid of that altogether. But
The last thing we want to do is start picking which classes we think can't be at the end of the day.
I
Because
think gym class would be perfect.
No,
if you're going away for sports.
Again, but I mean, we had the problem with the band kids at one time complaining that first thing in the morning wasn't good for them. You hear lots of people saying math. It's too early for me to do math at 7 a.m. The last thing we want to do is try and suggest to them what class should be wearing.
I'm not saying I want to suggest to them.
Yeah, I just let them fit it the best they can.
Mr. Jackson, that was good memory. We had our toughest math classes were first period of the day at 7:10. And kids aren't awake at 7:10, and you probably at the meeting, I think, because it was about 2017, 2016 when we're talking about other tough issues, and our Quimpo came out because they didn't want to have their programs the first period of the day, and that has worked out really well. I'm sure you've experienced that as a parent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't
Choir
had
said
any
the same.
issues.
Choir said the same thing. My voice isn't ready that early. I mean, it's just anybody. Someone's
No
going
one wants to be
someone's going to be
first.
complaining about being first. Someone's going to complain about being last. It's just the way it is. There's no point in us even discussing it, frankly.
I mean, I did say that sort of just off the cuff and in jest, but it would kind of make sense to put gym last.
It would,
We only have
if
like
we
4
could,
minutes left.
yes.
All right.
I would say strike lunch and just power through and go home.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is a proposed bell schedule 2C, which keeps in mind, when we created these schedules, we were under the assumption of certain parameters, within we worked. So should the parameters change, obviously things will change there. So some of the parameters were that students will take 4 periods at the Quakertown High School, regardless of whether or not they go to the tech school. So every tech student would have 4 periods with us. Students would have a 6-hour and 45-minute day. That was one of the parameters. And that the times of the tech school currently do not change. Or if they do change, the length of the day doesn't change, but only the start and end times would shift, but only with the agreement of the other sending schools as well. And so with that said, another parameter that we looked at was the 8 o'clock start time, which eliminated some of the proposals that we have put together because they had a significantly earlier start time. So this particular bell schedule starts at 8 a.m. and goes till 2:45, 6 hours, 45 minutes. It adds a lunch period in there so that the lunch period room would not be filled to the max for the tech students returning to our school. So in the second page, what you see there is there were some concerns with no longer offering a pride period that we currently have. That pride period is really used for additional support. Students complete homework there. Some of our students who are in the AP classes, as mentioned many times, use that to complete some of their work, that relieves some of the pressure from having to work to do the work from home. And so that was one of the concerns that we no longer offer a Pride. So what we came up with is a Panther Day schedule in a similar way that was mentioned earlier that Penridge currently offers, where we have the Panther period or the Pride period built into the day, both in the morning and afternoon. So that would allow for 2 half-hour sessions of like a Pride session where students can get the extra support that they need, or can use that time to complete any of the work that they would need to complete for that day or for that week. If we were to offer the Panther Day, say we build it in our schedule as a 3 times per week, so for example, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the regular schedule on Tuesday, Thursday, then we would have the exact same amount of instructional time that we currently have. Anything less, so if we were to offer the Panther Day on Tuesdays, Thursdays, twice a week, or once a week on Wednesdays only, that will take, the time that the students will have to get the additional support would be reduced, but the instructional time would go up at that point. And so you'll see if we say we do Panther Days on Tuesday, Thursdays, then we increase the amount of instructional time for students in the classroom pretty significantly. And then the supports would then be offered, say you do 2 days a week, you would have 4 half-hour sessions of that support, where now we have 5 half-hour sessions because we have it every day for 5 days. Tech students would have access to that as well. So because it is 2 half-hour sessions, the tech students spent half the time with us at the high school. They would also have access to half the time of support time. And so they would have access to a half an hour. So some of the, and I'm only going to highlight a few of the pros and cons that you have in front of you as well. It does align perfectly with the tech school. It would eliminate the 10th grade social studies class that has been raised as a concern before, and the instructional time would likely go up for students. One of the bigger concerns that we've heard, and this has not been formally presented to teachers yet, but they do think that the Pride period is beneficial, and it would reduce a little bit the opportunity for the MTSS supports, particularly the Tier 2 supports that we currently offer in the Pride session. So that's just a really quick.
So this is eliminating that fourth social studies period for every ed student, not just tech students?
So what it does, it wouldn't eliminate anything. It would really add periods in the day for tech students at the high school, where currently they take 3 periods with us. They would then take 4 periods with us, which would allow the room for students to take the social studies class, the health and PE class, and any other classes that they would like to take in that time.
So I just know when you were giving your presentation, you said it eliminates that 10th grade social studies.
Yeah.
It eliminates the concern that we have right now, where in order for 10th graders that go to tech to get social studies, they take it during Pride. And that has not been successful.
So when you said you eliminate
It eliminates the concern.
the concern, not the class.
I know that you have an executive session that started 1 minute ago, so I just want to share quickly that there is an update on esports in here. It's not for approval, it's just for information. Esports, if you remember, we started during COVID, right before COVID, actually. We had like one meeting or a practice that Joe and I went to, and then we kind of had to stop. And so they are back up and running. Dr. Zakin and Mr. Kuzo have really been instrumental in getting the teachers there started with this. It's really informational because we have joined a league now, and so even though our students, there's 700 schools across the United States and 1,000 teams that are participating in this league, and the IU is helping to support that as well. It's a company called Vanta, which actually is pulling this together. But we wanted you to not only be aware about what it is, but to let you know that we are playing Rocket League, which is like kind of a soccer car-based game, but that there are other games that are played through this league that potentially, you might see and think, why on earth are we letting our kids play these games? But in full transparency, I don't want for this to come back to you and for you not to have heard about it. Every parent does sign a permission slip, and they know which games their children are playing, but I wanted, in an effort to share more information than less, it's in there for you.
Listen, if you get a chance to play Rocket League, my son plays it all the time. It's pretty fun.
So I had a quick question about the schedule, if we can go back to that, Matt. So I'm looking at the periods for lunch, and it's set up for 25 minutes. Now, we've heard a lot this year about students being in line for 15 or 20 minutes. Is that going to be enough time for students to get their food, sit down, eat? That would be one of my concerns with this.
Yeah, I believe it is for 2 reasons. One, with 3 lunches, less students will go through the lunch line. And I think the concern that was raised this year was primarily with those PM Tech students who would need to depart earlier than the lunch is over. And for those students, we have now the fast track passes almost, they get first in line. But I think that was the concern that was raised and not necessarily with the whole student population.
All right, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
And will
Let's-
3 lunches prevent them, will they still be eating in the commons and in the hallway and not in the upper gym necessarily anymore?
We anticipate needing to use the commons, but not the track.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That's the end of the Education Committee meeting, and we're going to move on to the executive session.